just want to tell you the differences between the IR and the purchase order, because I find that you guys usually come to the office to talk about the IR and only to find later that you don't know what an IR is. So I want you to stop using those. Just tell me, for example, I would say, tell me what is it that you want, and then I will determine or tell you if you need an IR for that or a purchase order. But anyway, these are the two terms that will be thrown around, the internal requisition and the purchase order or PO or IR. And IR stands for the internal requisition, right? This is for the services that are offered by service providers that are within the university. By service providers, I'm referring to other departments. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the time. I'm referring to other departments that are support departments to us, right? An internal requisition is for services like, I'm hoping you're going to come back to this to check again if you're not sure, or you're going to make your notes so that you have them. If you're going to use, let's start with the sports admin. The sports admin, for example, you guys recently signed up, you were registering your teams at the sports admin, and you were required to do an IR for that, and you were given quotations. That's an internal requisition, and that was approved. We use that so-called IR, or the internal requisition book. That's an internal service, right? And then for catering is the second one, where you need a quotation, for example, from the dining hall, and that's an internal provider. They are contracted within the university. They are here, and we get a quotation from them, and then we process the payment or the promise to pay via the internal requisition. That's another one. And then for cleaning services, because cleaning services is within the services department. By the way, catering is also within the services department. Cleaning is within the services department, and therefore we need an internal requisition for those. If there's going to be an event, cleaning must be done, and it cannot be done by the Housecom. I know that you guys are very good and sometimes offer that the Housecom will clean, but the cleaning must be done by, as Tembi would say, professionals. All right, and that's now the cleaning. And then we look at the other, I'm trying to think now what else for the internal requisition. Okay, for the internal requisition, the other thing that we need an internal requisition for is security. Now listen carefully when it comes to this one, because I'm going to split security services into two, right? Security provided by protection services, which is the vets protection services, that needs an IR. And this is for small events like your braai and other similar small events. For big events like a party, or for example the ARC, if they have something big happening soon, or the SRC has a bash, they cannot use protection services. They outsource that function. They use companies like Diligence for security, for example. And for that, it is not an IR, because the Diligence company is not an internal company, but it's a service provider from outside, but it's a registered service provider, what we call the vendor, not Movenda. Not vendor the people, but vendor as in VENDOR. That's the vendor. They are on the vendor list. We usually use that type of language. And so for those people, you get a code from them like you would get from protection services. But the difference is, instead of completing an IR for that and taking it back to them, we sign the code and it gets sent to the finance officer. I would sign the code and it gets sent to the finance officer. The finance officer does whatever needs to be done in terms of checking whether we have funds and we've used the correct cost center and all that, and then forwards it to the clerks, who then process it in the system and generate a purchase order number. That purchase order number then gets sent to I'm going to use that example of security diligence. Then it gets sent to diligence, the company. Diligence would then know that when they have that, it's an approval that the job for them has been approved, right? Right? Has been acknowledged by the university, and that's a promise to pay. You know, so that's the what you call that's the purchase order. So if you buy something, let's say you buy something from Macro, for example, you'll get a quote. I sign it. It goes to finance. Finance does the bit, and then they generate a PO or a purchase order number, a PO number or a purchase order number. That's the uh, difference between the internal requisition and the purchase order number. So if you're going to use those POs and IRs, don't come to the office and use those if you don't know them. If you're going to use them, you need to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, just simply say that I need a code for catering to be approved. Don't say you need an IR or you need a PO, because you might be using a wrong thing unless you're sure that you know the difference between an IR and a PO. Otherwise, it's simple. I need a code for this approved. I need a code for this approved. And that's it. It ends there. Don't complicate your life. Once you have a quotation and a PO signed for all events, remember, you need a budget form because you need to budget for all events. So you'd say, okay, this is the budget for this, what you call the budget works this way. It is just a breakdown of how much you will use for the particular event and how much you will use for each of the items. By items, I don't mean the items that are in the code, but the codes themselves are items in the agenda, in the not the agenda. They are items themselves in the budget form, right? And the budget form does not come to me. I need to emphasize this one. The budget form does not come to me. The budget form goes to, it must be signed by the chairperson and the treasurer, first of all. You can see the spaces there for them to sign. And then it must be signed by the hall coordinator or the warden, whatever you call it, but that's the same people, the hall coordinator or the warden. But we mostly lately commonly use the name or the term warden. Once the warden has signed and you've signed, all of you have signed, then you bring it to the cluster manager for the cluster manager's final approval. When it's approved, then the process will continue from there. I don't want to get into too much detail to confuse you. This one is just about a little bit of the internal requisition and the purchase order. And the reason why I'm mentioning the budget form in this, I want to alert you that in the budget form there are columns for internal requisition, purchase order. So you need to make sure that whatever amounts you have in the different quotations that you have. Let's say you have a quotation from protection services and the cost is 500 rand. You put that 500 rand under internal requisition. And then you have another quote. This is now for a party. And you have another quotation for security from diligence, security services from diligence. You put that under the purchase order. And then there's what they call the cash advance as well. This is now where the warden will have to go and pay for you like you did during the O week. They pay for you or they give you cash to pay or to buy something. I don't have to explain. You've experienced it during the during the O week. And so for that, we usually say because it would be a purchase order or an internal requisition, there must be cash that is given to the warden. The warden signs for that amount, and that is called the cash advance. So if there's cash advance for that particular event, then you would put that amount, the code there, and you put the amount under the cash advance column. You don't touch the other column. Use the original Excel budget form that you were given. Do not change amounts. Don't try and do something. You put the amounts only in the three columns: the internal requisition, the purchase order number, or the yes, that the cash advance. You will notice that on the right hand side of the what you call of the budget form, the amount will be populated there as well. As you type the amount in the column, in the appropriate column, in the total there will be an amount that appears there. It adds the total at the bottom as well, so you don't touch those. You type only in those three columns. In fact, I'm going to ask Modise to lock the other, what you call the other columns there. Just make sure that people don't fiddle there, because once they fiddle there, then the formulas are gone. There's formulas that are put there in the Excel sheet. You don't have to put your totals yourselves there, and the total will be put there automatically, right? And so that's it. And I'm hoping that you understand what the difference is between the internal requisition and the purchase order number, and how the budget form works. Now, as I close, I'd like to remind you that before you plan for an event, you must know that you need to do some financial reconciliation for the previous event, because the next event will not be approved if you have not submitted what we call the reconciliation of finances. If you have not submitted your recon, it will not be approved. Okay, so what you do is you make sure that after the event, it's easier when you do it like that, so that you don't try and be under pressure and run around just before you get your next event approved. As soon as you are done with an event, you do the recon, you submit. You'll notice that the recon is very similar. The recon form is very similar to the budget form. So you put the amounts there, the totals are populated, and get everybody to sign. Then you take it to your cluster manager signs, and then it gets taken to the finance, and the finance office will reconcile that particular what you call as per the budget that was in place for that particular event. This is before, ladies and gents, this is before the next event can be approved. So the easy way, as soon as you're done with an event, just do the recon. Right. And I'm hoping that everything is clear. If not, please ask me. And I'll be putting a little bit of information here from time to time. When you don't understand, please do approach me. Thank you.